hitting the button. Gordon, it's been a week, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a week, right?
Oh,
2 weeks. Feels like it's been 2 weeks. Maybe.
Yeah, you've been
maybe
busy
even 3.
toiling away at the review of Intel's new 9th Gen 9900K.
Yep.
And you're here to tell us all about it, right? The embargo lifted this morning. You've been doing so much testing, and you compared it to the 8700K 8th Gen,
Previous top Intel part,
and the 2700X from Ryzen.
Right, and that is AMD's current top-end 8-core part. Yes, I know, big price difference, but it is AMD's best chip.
Okay.
We want to see how it compares, and we will definitely also think about the price as well. But definitely, when you're looking about performance, we want to see Intel's best 8-core mainstream consumer CPU against AMD's current best 8-core mainstream consumer CPU.
Cool, awesome. Well, we got the usuals here. This is live, obviously. We got Rusty, we got Will, we got Phil.
All right.
So Gordon has a ton of charts. Believe me, I saw all the charts he has. He has got a lot of charts.
I got a lot of charts.
So why don't we go over kind of this first batch of what it is and what you can expect. And I want everyone in the chat to say what kind of benchmarks do you want to see. You know.
Yeah, let us know. We're going to keep this live. We're going to keep it casual. I'm burned out. It's Friday. I want to go have a beer. I should have one right now. Adam who wants to go, I don't know, play video games or something with a controller.
Something better than this.
And we do apologize. We are having technical difficulties, so the charts are showing up interlaced. Also, I love the 1980s, so that's why we're doing it interlaced. The 1980s were all about interlaced.
1080i is the place to be.
I guess kind of 90s thing too, right? 1080i. Pretend it's 1997.
So yeah, we got a price to performance chart that Ruru2 definitely wants to see, but we'll get to that. So why don't you step us through the details here?
Right. So for people who don't know, this is Intel's 9th generation Core processor. There's 3 parts: Core i9 9900K, 8 cores, 16 threads. One step down, controversial, 9th gen Intel Core i7 9700K, 8 cores, no hyper-threading, and also the very bottom end part, 9th gen Core i5 9600K, 6 cores, 6 threads, of course, because no hyper-threading for people in the cheap seats. Sorry, you got to pay for it. There's only 3 of these. Those are the 3 9th generation parts. If you want to know what 9th generation means, it means somebody went in to Photoshop or Microsoft Word. They went to where it said 8th gen, hit backspace, changed it to 9. Also, they said, hey, let's 3D plastic print more cores in these things. This is 8 cores from Intel, which we have never seen. Clearly, right? 2 years ago, KB Lake, 4 cores.
Yeah.
We are now, they went to 6. Now we are 8. We are full core parity with AMD.
Yes. More cores is
This
good
is the
for
battle
everyone.
people want to see. But of course, if you're looking at this chart, pay attention to that right-hand side. Let me see if I can draw on this. This is, I just have to point this out because I know, can we do this? Nothing's working. Nothing is working today.
Oh, yeah. It's a Friday. Of course there's technical difficulties.
This is interesting. Why can I not?
You know, whatever. Yeah.
We don't care. It's $488. That's going to make people angry. It's going to trigger some people. I was very skeptical if this CPU could really make itself worth $488, and that's if you buy 1,000 of them. This thing is really going on the street for $529.
That's a lot of money, and especially in a year where Nvidia increased their prices on the graphics cards. I mean, everyone's increasing prices.
Everybody's got more money. Nvidia, Intel, everybody wants it, except for AMD, I guess. They want to give it to you for free. But let's get into this. You want to know performance?
Yes, please.
What are you going to get? We're going to get on the first one. I'm going to break out, of course, Cinebench. Everybody loves Cinebench. This is Maxon's 3D rendering benchmark based on a real-world engine, about 3 generations back from the engine they currently use in Cinema 4D, but still very real. It's heavily multi-threaded. Not a stand-in for everything that you do, but it does give you generally a really good idea of what you can get out of more cores, more threads. Scales very nicely. And you can see on the chart, I've highlighted this, although I incorrectly called the i9 9900K the Coffee Lake S. It's the refresh. So to be technical, yes, it's the refresh.
It's a technicality.
It's a technicality. So I actually ran it 2 different ways. I actually ran the 9900K bone stock, that is with MCE off. For the record, we are using an Asus Maximus 11, I think. I've sort of lost count. 11 Hero board, Z4 390, about a $339 board. Fairly high-end board. But I did decide I wanted to run with MCE off. It's been controversial in the past. I'm going to make a very good pitch for why you need to have MCE on your 9900 build. But you're seeing two numbers. One is Cinebench, all threads, bone stock MCE off, which is actually not what you get out of the box with most motherboards, but 2065.
That's not bad.
That is not bad.
I mean, it's up there with that Broadwell E part that's in our streaming box right now. I paid $1,200 for that.
Right.
Like
so
3 years ago.
It's crazy, right? So when you basically add up most of the CPUs we reviewed over the last 24 months, this stands atop every single mainstream part. Of course, the next best one is that Ryzen 2700X at 1800. But here's the thing, you click on MCE on. I just want to point this out now. I will be pointing it out as we go through the numbers. You turn on multi-core enhancement, you flip it to on, and you are now running at higher clock speeds, and we are getting 2183. It is actually faster in Cinebench, slightly, really a tie, but let's say it's actually still faster.
Technically.
Then a Core i9 7900X Skylake, 10-core part. It's also faster. This is very significant here. Then the Core i7 6950X Broadwell E, which was a 10-core, 20-thread CPU that Intel sold at the height of its hubris for $1,723. So Coffee Lake R, or 9900K, is actually faster than the $1,723 10-core chip. That is an achievement. It's all the clock speeds this sucker gives you. It's all about the clock speeds with this. So I'm going to switch to a next one.
People are loving it. People are loving it.
Let's do this one. We also want to know about single-threaded performance. Let's bust out the single-threaded performance. Cinebench 15, you can actually say, I want all threads, I want 10 threads, I want one thread. One thread is actually, a single thread is actually very usable, applies to a lot of people because most of the apps we use, Chrome, Word, whatever you're using, some application from 10 years ago that you never bothered to pay for a newer version of, most of those are single-threaded at best. Photoshop, don't buy it. It is mostly a single-threaded application. There are some filters that do push it. It is getting better, but let's face it, single-threaded is very important for the world we live in, and that is where 9900K just rules the roost. This chip, remember, is a 3.6 gigahertz base clock speed, 5 gigahertz turbo. This is like Intel saying, we're going to guarantee you 5 gigahertz on a single thread all the time. Well, almost. If you hit thermal issues, no, but we're going to say, lawyers will say no, but let's face it, for the most part, 5 gigahertz, one thread all the time, and that puts the 9900K on top of everybody. I mean, I've got everything in here. I've got $2,000 Skylake X parts. I have got $1,800 Threadripper 2 parts. We have Broadwell E. We have Coffee Lake. We've got Ryzen 7. We've got everything in here. But let's face it, when you're showing your cards and you're looking at a 5 gigahertz single thread performance all the time, every day, whatever you're doing, you're gonna win.
That's pretty good.
And here we go, 220. The next closest CPU is at 8700K at 206. On turbo, 8700K is about a 4.7 part, so it's pretty fast itself, but 300 more megahertz gets you that. And you will see we don't see any difference between multi-core enhancement off and on. It's basically the same score because it's not a multi-core. We are running a single-threaded task. True. But this really just tells you how much 9900K is just going to cook on most of the applications you use. That lousy browser you're using, it's gonna run faster on 9900K.
So we have some questions about overclocking. Did you try any overclocking, pushing these higher? Somebody's saying that the 8700K can get up there to those guys once it's overclocked.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to save that discussion for the end. Okay. We are going to get into overclocking. I'm going to discuss what other people have gotten. I'm going to discuss what I did in my lazy, cheap way, which I think 90% of the people are going to do. But I want to go on to the next performance.
Okay.
So let me see if I can. Can I just do this?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so next one, let's move on to Corona. This is Corona Renderer. It is a benchmark I came across from AMD, I believe. This is actually not something that I came across myself. AMD said, hey, check this out. You should use this using our CPUs with more cores in them.
I'm sorry, real quick. We have a question from the chat asking why the i5 2500K isn't in these charts. One Daniel Masaoka wants to know.
I didn't put the 20. I could have put 2500K in there. It's still a great part for gamers. It's going to be slower. You're going to give up clock speeds. If you pair that with, say, RTX 2080, yeah, you're gonna give up a decent chunk of frame rate. I would consider possibly maybe it's time to get something new. But if you're running 1070-ish and you're playing games, you're not doing mostly content creation, you can be cheap, like you are, Dan.
All right, sorry, I had to throw that in.
Dan, you're married.
Yeah, he's literally on the other side of the wall.
You better find a way to justify that, because I can tell you that's a hard thing, Dan.
All right, so back to Corona. Well, what are we looking at here?
So Corona is another rendering benchmark. We see now for the test. I just want to make sure, because we are living in the benchmarking political climate of you got to show everything. All of these 3 chips were tested. Latest version of Windows, not the new one that crashes your machine, but the one that was reliable. So 1803, I believe. We also ran DDR4 3200, all of them Guile, Sail 14, 16 gigs, dual channel, single rank. I did not have dual rank for all the platforms. We're just going to go with single rank. Hey, deal with it. For storage, they all used a HyperX Savage MLC SATA drive.
Okay.
Should not matter in our benchmarks if you're doing it right. And for graphics, GeForce 1080 latest drivers. So there have been some issues with AMD on previous and NVIDIA and previous drivers. I want to use the latest drivers. So latest Windows, latest drivers, and also same cooler in all of them. I decided in the end to actually have to tear up everything and go with Corsair H80i V2 coolers. If you've ever seen it, it's a fair single rad. It's not something stupid and crazy. It's a single rad cooler, 2 fans on it. I ran it at max fans. Everything was running cases with the sides off. We also had fans blowing in to keep the VRMs cool, because I didn't want the VRMs to overheat on all the platforms.
I can attest to this.
So I tried to make it as fair as possible to all 3 platforms.
Okay.
I had 3, I had a Z270, a Z3, God, who can even keep track? I had a Coffee Lake S 6-core. I had a separate platform for the 900K, and I had a separate one for the 2700X. All of them were higher end chipset boards.
Sorry, we got a question you're probably going to get into, but what's the difference between on and off, or on and auto?
Right, so that's the interesting thing. So on Coffee Lake S, most reviewers, because of comments, criticism from people who say if you run your tests with MCE enabled on your motherboard, you are cheating in favor of Intel. Because this is basically the motherboard maker saying, you know what, run at a higher clock. There's sort of this, Intel has internal guidance that tells motherboard vendors to run at these bins, and then the motherboard vendors say, we can safely goose these CPUs up a little bit. In this test here, I ran with MCE off, disabled, which is fair. This is what you would get at an absolute bone stock, maybe the cheapest motherboard that didn't have MCE support. That's what you would get.
Okay.
And then you have MCE Auto, which is basically the motherboard deciding very opportunistically, interestingly, I didn't realize this is more like a laptop now. If you have the power, if you have the thermals, we're gonna move the clocks up. We're gonna move the clocks up.
Interesting.
Now, there's another setting which most people have ignored, and I have ignored it myself, and that's MCE on, which is multi-core enhancement on. And on the Maximus 11 Hero board that I use, I imagine you're going to see this on other high-end MSI, Gigabyte, etc. boards. It basically uses probably the highest bin. Also, all the memory XMP profiles were running. XMP profile 1 on the Intel boards, and I think it was XMP 2 on the Ryzen boards. So what you are getting out of the Core i9 9900K, and this is very impressive. Stock speed, if you are running it all cores for more than 3 minutes the cores, the clocks will start up. You'll hit maybe a 4.7, 4.6 turbo, and then about a minute or 2 minutes in with an air cooler, like a cheap air cooler, it'll fall down to 4.3. So it's a 4.3 all 8 cores.
Okay.
You turn on MCE on auto, board goes, hey, you got more cooling, we're gonna run it up higher. And what I found on the board that I use, we were getting 4.7 all cores most of the time. I mean, if you ran generally a very long load, MCE Auto, it's basically a 4.7 8-core CPU almost all the time. Turn MCE on though on the Maximus 9 Hero, and I want to see how other boards do this. It was 5 gigahertz. Now, this is sort of I'm giving the overclocking thing away, but that is just like the cheapest, easiest overclock in the world. And let's face it, that is well within warranties. It should be, because one, MCE is enabled by default on almost every motherboard that I've ever seen, which is why a lot of reviewers got in trouble when they did their Coffee Lake reviews.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got a question from a couple people, including Vignesh, who's asking, why didn't you use PBO on the AMD? Which is kind of like an equivalent to MCE.
Well, let's see. I don't think I ran a PBO. I'll go back for you, Vignesh, and run it. But you are looking at a CPU that is running 4.5 gigahertz, 4.7, and 4.3 all cores all day. I can tell you, just from the overclocking people are getting out of Ryzen 7, it's a better part, way better than first generation Ryzen. This is not going to be running at 4.4 suddenly. It's not going to be suddenly running at 4.4. It's just not going to happen.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one, though. But clearly, look at this. We are looking at clock advantage. We are looking at, I don't know.
Multi-threaded advantage.
8 cores.
Yeah.
And the 6-core Coffee Lake, it's not bad. Not a bad part, again. So I got a lot of charts here. We're gonna probably skip some of them. V-Ray, same thing. This is MCE off, bone stock. So, again, 8-core does very decent against Ryzen 7 2700X, and of course it's definitely better than that 6-core chip. Let's move on to Blender. Same thing again, multi-threaded benchmark, shorter is better. More cores better, no surprise. Zen 2700X doing great against that 6-core Skylake, Coffee Lake part, which is why Intel had to come out with this 9900K. But 8 cores at a higher clock, base clock even. You're looking at probably 4.3 most of the time.
Okay.
Then maybe a little bit more. 238, definitely faster. I also did run this newer Blender Benchmark 1.0 Beta 2. It is basically, the short version is CPU test only, and it basically throws a whole bunch of benchmarks for Blender into one big long 30-minute run. So
wow, okay.
it's a pretty good thermal load in these chips. And look, again, Coffee Lake, SR 900K, all over those other parts. The worst, of course, is that 6-core CPU. No surprise, you lose 2 cores, you lose, it's just, you can't beat 8 cores. Ryzen, very competitive because on stock, really, you're looking at a 4.3 versus a 4.1, basically, in these parts. I mean, the cores are pretty damn close in performance. Intel maybe has 4 to 5% on it in IPC, but, 200 megahertz, a little bit IPC, very close, but, these long loads, it's pretty close. But still, 9900K, well ahead of everybody else. This, of course, is Blender BMW. I do like to run Blender. This is the BMW benchmark itself using Blender. We have MCE Auto on off again. But if you want to look at MCE off, which is what you're going to get on probably your $100 motherboards, it's still a decent bump over Ryzen 7, right? I mean, and of course over that 6-core. There's basically the trend, Pavre, multi-threaded, no surprise, 900K on top. Single-threaded, 5 gigahertz. Now we of course see Ryzen 7, it's got that lower single-threaded performance. It just can't keep up even with 8700K, because 8700K, single-thread, very high clocks. 900K, 5 gigahertz all day. It's just all over it. This is a trend. The trend you should see. Handbrake. We take Handbrake. We convert a 4K file to 1080p 30 using the Matrosoka H265 profile built in. This is bone stock again. We are looking at a very, very nice boost over the Ryzen 7 as well as the 8700K. Ryzen 7, I am noticing a trend though. It definitely does have some issues with H.265 encoding and Handbrake, and I also saw that in Premiere too. I did do, one thing you should know when you're doing video encoding and you're looking at benchmarks out there, it's not all the same, folks. It's not all the same. If you do certain loads, it's, it pushes different parts of the CPU. It gets a lot closer. Like this, exact same file, exact same version of Handbrake. I'm using the 1080p Apple profile built in Handbrake. And we see, 900K again, winner, no problems, but 2700X closes up that gap.
It's not bad.
And its core advantage over 8700K opens up. Let's look back at this. Let's look at this. So check that out.
Oh,
we are
wow.
looking at, right? So we are looking at, so what is going on here? I'm not exactly sure.
Is it because the other one's H.264?
Well, the other one's H.264. This is H.265.
Right.
Is it the codec they're using? Is it the settings they're using? I mean,
resolution? I don't
who
know.
knows?
Yeah.
One thing I think the lesson to take away is you can't just simply eat one benchmark and think this is the absolute answer. I encourage everybody on today, go out and read my story, PCWorld.com, go read AnandTech, Tom's Hardware, Gamers Nexus, read everybody's,
Absorb
digest
it like a
it,
sponge.
absorb it,
Yeah.
and then you decide what is right for you. Don't just simply say this benchmark means this. If you want to go argue on Reddit, that's one thing, but if you actually want to make a decision for your own buying decision, read everybody's coverage,
Yeah, of
make the
course.
right buying decision for yourself. Let's move on to another one, Premiere Pro. So I took Premiere Pro, brand new version, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's not even 2019, they got a 2019 version out.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Yes, literally just downloaded earlier this week.
Right. So what I did was I took the same HP video that Dan shot,
Okay.
Sony Alpha 4K footage, and then he made a short 2-minute quick review on it. It's on our website. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. I took that. I exported it to Blu-ray. I did check off max rendering quality because you should do that if you are changing the resolution. And we see again that same interesting thing where,
Yeah, that is weird.
Oh wait, I may have screwed up the chart, but no, I guess that's correct.
Oh, well, just the other ones had Ryzen in the middle.
Yeah, so I apologize for this. Believe me, these were done late at night, as they always are when you benchmark things.
But still, I mean, that's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Ryzen does pretty well in this Blu-ray encode. The 6 cores on Skylake on this 8700K definitely gonna hurt it.
Obviously, heavily multi-threaded. So
For car people, 6-cylinder is not gonna run with 8. Nor we get into turbos and all that stuff, but. Again, so this is actually very similar to what I saw in Handbrake. It's very interesting. Premiere Pro, same workload, but now I'm exporting it using the H.265 preset.
Interesting.
Same resolution, but I did check maximum render quality because I could.
Yeah.
And we see that Ryzen, even though it has that core advantage over 8700K, loses some of its steam.
Interesting.
So we see two
That is weird.
H.265 workloads that are not doing great. I do know Premiere, they source codecs from different places. I believe Main Concept is one they mainly use. So I don't believe it could be a codec issue. It could be something else. We are going to look into this hopefully some more. But for Intel people, Core i9 900K is rocking it.
I mean,
It
still,
has,
yeah.
right? This pattern is it is 8 cores at high clocks. Also, and of course, I do like to do this because people argue use GPU. I don't use GPU. I don't care.
Yep.
So I just do this just to make sure we have this down on paper. I take same workload. Now I'm exporting it to Blu-ray. I use the I use CUDA on our 1080 GeForce cards. And we see the 8 cores are pretty close. I've sort of seen that before, and 6 core loses some steam.
Yeah,
So I've
okay.
seen that as it actually scales really nicely up to 18 cores. So
Yeah. Nice. And you don't even need a 1080 for Premiere, Like
no, you don't.
Yeah, but
like
I mean, that's
1060
still,
is
still
generally
nice.
pretty good.
Yeah.
1050 Ti almost or something. So it's, but more cores does seem to still help.
Nice.
Same thing. This is a GPU 265. Oh, although we see that same hit now. Interestingly, Ryzen, where it was running pretty close to 900K, even though we're doing a GPU render, doing that export to 4K in Premiere 2019, it loses a lot of steam.
With H.265, yeah, it seems to not like that H.265. That's
It'd be interesting to see if this is some kind of it's something deeper. It's a deeper issue. I don't think it could be a codec issue here, but
yeah.
okay. Next one, we're gonna do some compression tests. I like to do this just because it's a benchmark. There's really only 2 compression tools people seem to use these days. One of them is WinRAR Labs. No surprise, 9900K all over it. Always going to win this one, it looks like. The worst is Ryzen 7. I've seen this before. Saw this on Threadripper. I also saw this on Skylake X. Generally, WinRAR doesn't like these CPUs that use Infinity Fabric. Intel uses a new sort of fabric mesh for its many core CPUs. Skylake X takes a performance hit as well. Coffee Lake S, Coffee Lake R, 9900K, 8700K, they're older ring bus. And I could see this Broadwell E with ring bus versus Skylake X with their mesh construct. Broadwell E is actually faster, so something about WinRAR doesn't like the
interesting
the mesh construction that we're seeing on these cores. It'd be interesting because the future really, as they put on more and more cores, we're going to be seeing more mesh. I see Intel going to it as well as they add more cores on the mainstream parts. But also, who cares? 7-zip is free. I love 7-zip. I absolutely love 7-zip. It's fast. This is 7-zip. I'm going to show you 2 scores, not the overall score. If you do the overall score, it really is just an average of both scores. This is 7-zip, latest version, 18.05. Compression performance. 5 gigahertz. Oh wait, well probably I'm running the MCE off. So 4.3 versus 4.1. This is a compute workload. 9900K is winning this, even though it doesn't have that huge clock increase. It's just all over it. More cores, IPC. Who knows? Love 7-zip. Don't know. I'm actually surprised that 8700K is doing pretty well here. I got this backwards? I do have it backwards.
They seem to.
Okay, I got this backwards. This is the test that is very.
Longer bars is better.
All right, I got this backwards, folks.
Okay.
Compression, I got it. It's been a very long 2 weeks.
It's been a
compression is more. Oh yeah, wait. This is a compute workload. Rewind. This is the compute workload. And Zen actually is closer to a 8700K part. Surprisingly, interestingly though, when you get to decompression, it is more about memory bandwidth. And
interesting. Wow.
It's very interesting because I should have made a chart for this, been in Sysoft Sandra. On my machine, the Ryzen 7 2700X actually had maybe 20%, 15% more memory bandwidth than the 9900K. And 8700K in Sandra, it's very interesting because I would have expected the bandwidth to be very similar considering that they're all running at 3200. But I think this explains why here 2700X gets pretty damn close to that 9900K. It's got just greater memory bandwidth, interestingly, than the 2 Intel parts. And of course, we see the thread count, that lower thread count. That 8700K, still a great chip. It's always going to be behind these CPUs most of the time.
I mean, you got 2 cores, two less cores to
on multi-threaded loads, right?
We got a question from Jesus here.
Oh, Jesus.
7-zip per core scaling for compression and decompression.
Say again.
Is 7-zip configured as per core scaling for compression and decompression?
I basically ran it. Yeah, this is not per core. This is all cores.
All cores
for this load.
Oh, okay.
It's not like we're saying run one. Yeah, I've done that for Ryzen 3, but I didn't do it here. I didn't have time. So that's basically the end of my application test. We're going to switch over here.
So what about games, Gordon?
Okay, let's do some games here, right? Because Intel claimed world's best gaming CPU. It's very interesting there, right? Very interesting. Games, I got to say, I ran a lot of tests at 19 by 10, 1080p.
Okay.
Because I really do think at this point with these high performance CPUs, 2700X, 900K, 8700K, these are really fast CPUs. Using a 1080, a GTX 1080, it's kind of crazy. It's a $500 GPU, but it feels like it's too slow at this point. There are a lot of workloads where it's just everything was GPU limited, even at 1080p. But for my testing, just to be upfront about this, I did a lot of 1080p testing. I did a lot of 1080p low testing. To be fair, AMD and AMD fans have always said, well, you know what? I don't play 1080p set on low or lowest. I play 1080p, 1440p on very high to ultra. I did that as well, just to make sure that people understand that if you are getting 25% or 30% or 44% more performance out of a 9900K in a game, that's not going to happen if you're running a GTX 1060 at 1080p. It's just not going to happen. It really takes a really fast GPU to enable the performance of these chips. Unfortunately, I didn't have identical 2080 cards, but I luckily just recently received some 2080 Ti cards. So I'm going to be running some of these tests again on the Ti cards to see.
Okay, nice.
You know what? All the reviewers say, well, we like to run low resolution tests because we want to take the GPU out of the equation. So what if I take the most crazy, insane, expensive, and fast 2080 Ti card and run these same tests that I run?
Okay.
Are we really going to see this? Let's find out. You're not going to find out today, though. But what you see in front of you, if Adam will switch over, is Deus Ex Mankind United. This is one of the games that AMD came back after the original Ryzen 7 launch and said, this one seems to play nicely with us, because they definitely felt like they were in the penalty box by a lot of games.
Wait, I thought Mankind was divided.
Well, yeah, well, definitely the hardware community is divided. This video game, Mankind, is united. I like what I'm seeing here, 19 by 10 Ultra, although some things are a little confusing. Deus Ex, DX12 mode, 9900K. 2700X, basically dead even. Of course,
right?
Because we are, for the most part, looks like we're GPU limited, and interestingly, 8700K, which you think would do pretty well, considering that it's fairly high clock, is a good step back from Ryzen and 9900K. So it makes you think, wow, maybe really there's a lot of multi-threading going on. We're penalizing the 6-core 8700K part. I don't know. Because I did run the same benchmark at 1910 low. Again, this takes the GPU out of the equation. This is saying, what if you had all the money in the world and you had a 2080 Ti card? That's the theory, right? Once we do that, interestingly, we see the Coffee Lake part. This is the confusing part. Take a big jump in performance, actually leapfrog that 2700X. And runs pretty decently against that 9900K, but to have the title of the fastest or the best, I guess, Coffee Lake R Core i9 900K still a winner here.
Yeah,
right. And,
sure is.
And we are looking. This is a familiar pattern. Anybody who looked at the original reviews of Ryzen 7 when they first launched, there was this bizarrely something that nobody could ever explain. Nobody knows why. I think everybody sort of decided, I agree, that a lot of it was game optimization. And once you take the GPU out of this, I see that Ryzen has that familiar, 18 to 25% penalty against core parts. And we're seeing it right here in Deus Ex when you take the GPU out. But again, save your judgment for when I put a 2080 Ti in the machine and rerun the same test.
Okay,
So
yeah.
We'll see, right? Next one is Ashes of the Singularity Escalation, 19 by 10, low quality. I love to mention this. This is a fantastic game for showing off DirectX 12. It was really the title everybody showed off DirectX 12 capabilities with when it first launched. Nobody really plays this game, though, and Nate Kirch over at Legit Reviews pointed out to me recently, I thought it was a blast. He's like, what's funny is when you look at the number of people who play Ashes of the Singularity, it's about 300 people constant. And then suddenly there's a bump where it's suddenly 800 people, 900 people are playing it, and then the bump goes away after a couple weeks. And he looked at it, and basically every time there was a new CPU, a new Ryzen, a new core launch, everybody, all the reviewers and all the test labs around the world would start cranking up Ashes of the Singularity, and everybody was playing it.
That is funny.
Be that as may, I'm only going to run low quality mode here. I am doing the CPU focus benchmark because I want to see what the difference is in the CPU. I don't, we're not really worried. We don't want to test the GPU. We want the CPU. Core i9 900K, very healthy lead, 58 frames a second.
The world's
Lake
fastest gaming
world's
CPU?
World's best gaming
best,
CPU
I'm sorry,
is the actual claim. Coffee Lake S suffers, interestingly. So we're looking at 6 versus 8 cores, so that's definitely could be it. There is decent multi-threading in Ashes of the Singularly, unlike the vast majority of games. Ryzen 7, of course, does decent, not bad, but running with the 8700K, which actually it's cheaper than, you could say, it's a good deal, but clearly Coffee Lake S, 8 cores, high clocks, faster, right? So
Yeah.
Next one, F1 2016.
Ooh.
So again, let's just make sure people understand this. With a 2080 or with a GTX 1080 with a 9900K or a Ryzen 7 or a 2700X or a Core i5 2500K. Actually,
Yeah.
no, that's not probably 2500K probably not hang here. But if you had a Core i5 8th gen or a Core i5, Core i7 7th gen Kaby Lake, it's probably going to be very similar. Basically, they're all the same. 91, 91, 89, right? It's a tie. It's just simply margin of error here.
Yeah, right.
When you are running F1 2016 at a resolution, you would 1600p, 25 by 1600 on Ultra. So make sure this is a GPU load here. Let's see what happens when we go to low. So I take the same game, I lower the resolution to 19 by 10. Low game settings again. Let's see what we're getting. We see a familiar separation here. We see 9900K with its high clocks all over everybody. 8700K probably running at about 4.7 here. If assuming that F1 is not that multi-threaded, I am running I think DX12 mode. Can't remember, in my notes somewhere. But Ryzen 7, we see that familiar 20% sort of performance delta when the GPU is not factored into this. So we've seen this before, but today is about 9900K, and damn, right? It's just moving. It is just moving along. 260 frames a second.
It's the best and the fastest.
Best and the fastest. Hitman Ultra, though. This is sort of interesting. I didn't realize this. I probably have long forgotten it. This game does not like Ryzen. It runs terrible on Ryzen compared to other chips. 8700K is 126 frames a second. 2700X is 102. And that 9900K is cooking at 149, right? And look, this is 19 by 10 Ultra. It was like, oh, wow, I'm really surprised. A lot of these other games are sort of limited by the GPU, but here we see definitely that penalty in games that just aren't optimized for the Ryzen architecture. Heard it. But again, today is about Core i9 9900K, and it just cooks. It's just cooking in everything. Next one, just to find out, I said, well, this maybe Hitman Absolution is so old, it's like playing Counter-Strike. Let me try 25 by 16, 1600p. So I'm running at a higher resolution, and it really doesn't change. You can see that now as we go. I'm going to switch back. We see the difference between the 9900K and the 8700K, the clock speed advantage for 9900K at a less GPU bound load gives the advantage to 9900K. I crank the resolution up, more of a GPU load, and 9900K and 8700K close up pretty tight, right? 900K still fastest, thus better, right? But still, again, 2700X. Just there's a big penalty here. Clearly, it doesn't hurt your ability to play the game, but this is the one thing that has vexed AMD. A lot of older games, AMD didn't even exist to them. They're just not going to run as fast. Of course, in the reality, it doesn't matter. You're still getting 101 frames a second. But if you want 132 frames a second with the same GPU, Core i9 9900K, right? Middle Earth 25 by 16. Basically a tie. Zen is actually slightly ahead, but this is really margin of error. All these, again, MCE off.
Well, why do we think it is for this particular game?
This is just margin of error. I could probably...
Well, no, that the Ryzen 2 is keeping up.
Oh, this is...
2700.
So I think in this game, we are mostly GPU bound.
Oh.
So, and honestly, I said, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead and run this 50 more times different ways, but I think we'd see the same thing if I ran Shadow of the Zamorder down at very low resolutions, very low game settings. Ryzen would suffer, probably not as bad as Hitman. We'll see. There is Hitman 2 coming out.
Yes. Yeah.
They are aware of Ryzen. Ryzen is here now, so we'll do a rematch once the new game is out. But clearly, Middle-earth, again, just to reinforce this, GPU bound, it doesn't really matter. Gaming still, for the most part, that is not optimized for all the cores that we have today. Doesn't matter that much. We're going to see something very different at the end. If you hang on here, Rainbow Six Siege, which is pretty much an esports game. It's insane. I'm running 25 by 16 on Ultra, and it's 145, 144, 140. It's just like, you'd have to play this at 4K to really do. You could play this on 4K with a 1080 on all these parts. I didn't even bother to run that at low res. It's just, what's the point, right? You can run this on almost anything.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. If you're worried about this game, you know, you're probably not looking at a Core i9 900K and a RTX 2080 Ti. So, go with your sports game. Rise of the Tomb Raider. We are almost at the end of our gaming section, folks. Rise of the Tomb Raider, 19 by 10, very high DX12 mode. GPU bound, again, 19 by 10, very, very interesting. You would think that a 1080 and these chips would be ahead of this game, but it's just a GPU bound test at this resolution at these settings. Do I have a lower setting? Yeah, I do have a lower setting. So we crank down the lowest. Again, let's look at this. Take a good look at this. Damn even when you're on Ultra because it is a GPU test. Crank it to low, take all the GPU out of this, and we're going to find out when I put on that RTX 2080 Ti card, are we going to see the same delta? If we're wrong, that sort of shows, yeah, maybe reviewers are wrong. We should be testing at Ultra. It doesn't really matter anyway. But again, we see that similar pattern. Ryzen 7 at a deficit to 9900K, high clocks all the time. It's got a decent clip over that Ryzen part. 8700K, I'm going to guess even in DX12 mode, Rise of the Tomb Raider really doesn't push all those cores because look, 8700K, probably running pretty decent clocks. Got enough cores to matter. It's pretty damn close to that 9900K, but for the lawyers in the world, the blue bar is longer, which means it's the fastest and you can argue best. Right?
Yeah.
So, Shadows of the Tomb Raider is a really, I just started using this. It's pretty damn cool because this game does actually look like we finally crossed over into where CPUs matter. Ashes of the Singular Lady, everybody would argue mattered. It is an engine. They are licensing it to other people, maybe. But again, as legit reviews pointed out to me, there's like 300 people who play this on the entire planet every day. Shadows of the Tomb Raider, though, is probably, there's a good clip, more people playing it. I'm running 19 by 10, highest game settings, DX12. You will see, interestingly, Ryzen 7, Zen Plus, ahead of 9900K. I was actually surprised. This is and also, 8700K, sort of right there with that 900K. It's very interesting. I kind of wonder if that's, the cores don't matter. Clearly clock speeds don't matter, which Core has. I wonder if that's that memory bandwidth. I don't know. Maybe it likes it. But I want to point out, Shadow of the Tomb Raider reports more data. This is just simply the average frame rate. It also reports the CPU average frame rate, which, if I understand it right, is what the game thinks the performance would be if you subtract the GPU. So
which is what's on the Forza, the new Forza.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's why I wanted to show it to you.
Right.
I was
So,
like, okay, that's cool.
We're doing this without having to deal with the Microsoft Store, with the Forza, which maybe I'll have to deal with. But when you look at the highest game setting, 19 by 10, Shadows of the Tomb Raider, latest version, GTX 1080 again, DX12 mode, the CPU average, which is the performance of the CPU if the GPU didn't matter, we do see, hey, 6 core lower than the 8 cores, which I think is very good.
Yeah, wow.
Right?
That's not bad at all.
I love this result because it sort of shows that the games are actually finally getting there. The Ryzen 7 with its 8 cores, it's a very decent performance, right?
So does this track with your low settings then?
No, that's the other way.
Oh, okay.
That's next. Because this is 19 by 10 on the highest game quality setting. The game, I guess they try to subtract the GPU out of it, but I want to see, well, what happens if you crank it down to lower settings? Are we going to see that same Ryzen fallback? Shadows of the Tomb Raider,
Interesting.
low. Overall frame rate, when we take the GPU out of this, interestingly, I would say you could argue it's a tie, but clearly there's a little bit of an edge to 9900K. But again, this is the average frame rate when sort of the GPU is counted here according to the game. When we look at low, and we are only looking at CPU, we see a much larger difference between that Core i9 900K and that Ryzen 7 2700X. And you can sort of, if you look back through all the numbers we did, there's sort of a similar pattern we see, right? It's hard to beat all the cores, all the clock speeds of that 9900K. And although I will say I was a little confused by this, because you would think the advantage that the game is giving to the 8-core parts when the GPU load is factored into it would stay the same here, but we actually see the 8700K creep up and actually come out, just between the 9900K and the 2700X. I'm a little confused by the results I'm seeing. I mean, honestly, I never even fired up this game until this week, so we'll have to look into some more. I'll have to ask the developers what they think could be happening here, but. For the nitpickers, for Team Blue, it's all good news. Core i9 9900K is doing good.
Yeah.
Right? Faster, better.
Do we have any more game ones? Or?
Oh wait, do I have one more?
Oh, it's just on low.
Oh yeah, actually, let's close out with this one. So this is Shadows of the Tomb Raider, 19 by 10 low.
With MCE. Okay.
With MCE on, right? So I wanted to see because.
Wow.
When you take the Core i9 900K, 8700K too, but not as pronounced as the 900K, and you flip on, you go from MCE off, MCE auto, MCE on, what you're seeing is higher clocks with all cores. So all core 4.3 if you're doing a decent load on off, to 4.7 to 5 gigahertz. For the most part, it runs full on 5 gigahertz most of the time with MCE on. And what we're seeing is that clock speed advantage just open up with auto. Again, this is the out-of-box performance you would get if you bought a 9900K and the Maximus 11 motherboard, right?
Wow.
So,
Damn.
yeah, I mean, it's very clock sensitive here. It's not necessarily cores. Nice, right?
Yeah. Well, we have a question though from Bastel. Yeah, we have a question from Bastel. He has to ask, why didn't you run the 2700X in game mode? Yeah, everyone knows game mode is going to be better on the 2700X.
Yeah, I will say, I admit, I was being unfair to AMD by not enabling game mode. I got to say, I was very surprised by the results, the reruns by that tests, because I was actually surprised. It was a good sign because a lot of those games benefited from Ryzen 7 going from basically 4 cores, 4 threads to 8 cores, 16 threads. So that was actually a good showing. I think that was actually good news in a lot of ways. So yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, I did not run game mode intentionally to hurt AMD. Everybody, that's why I did it.
And before we get to cost to performance, right? You're going to talk about some scaling here.
Yeah, we'll talk about scaling. Oh, you know what I didn't do? God, that's what. I will come back. We will post the money shot.
You didn't do it?
I didn't do the money shot.
You didn't do it?
I was here at like 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, man. All right. Well, because
and then I had to give it to somebody who had to edit it at 10 o'clock at night.
That's what everyone wants to see.
You with the money shot.
It's the cost per performance, right?
Somebody figure that out and tell me. We'll insert it in there. Let's look at the scaling, though. So I just like to do this. My argument is you have 8 cores. You have 1 core. You have many, many different applications, many, many things happening all the time. If somebody's telling you one thing is better than the other, they don't really know. Nobody really knows what's right for you. One thing I do like to try to figure out is, thank you, Windows, is how the CPU will perform if you give it a load of 8 cores, 8 threads, 16 cores, 16 threads, 1 core, 2 core, 3 core. It just gives you a rough idea. This in no way means you're going to get exactly this if you're doing this, but you can see how the CPU responds to a given load, the same load every time, and it sort of tells you it's going to run at this clock speed, you'll get this performance. So I take Cinebench, I run it from 1 thread to X threads that the CPU has, and in this case, 1 to 16 on the 9900K and 1 to 12 on the 8700K. This is MCE off on both of these.
And explain the colors too, because it's a little small. Who's who? It looks like the.
Can I can't draw, can I? No, of course not.
But at least we can zoom in.
We can zoom in. Thanks to the wonders of Windows 10 and the PC and ability to touch.
So we got the 8700K in blue. And the 9900K in green.
Yes.
Correct? All
Yep,
right.
so correct. So let's go. Let's zoom in on down here. It just, against its sibling, the 8700K, which previously was the fastest, CPU out there for those lighter threads, Core i9 just gives it no room. There's just not one single bin, not one single place that the 8700K can hang with the Core i9 9900K. You would expect that, of course, because it's Core i9 9900K, but you can see it here. There's just like every single bin. We go up, and Core i9 just runs away with it. And of course, once you get to 12 threads, 6 cores, it's out of gas, and it's just wailing on it, that 9900K. And just to help you, here's what it is as percent increase, right? This is just simply MCE off on both of these, so absolute less than bone stock, you could argue, because MCE is enabled on most motherboards. You will get higher performance on most Intel motherboards by default. How much exactly, no one really can say, but absolute bone stock less than default, 9900K is going to be generally 7 to 10% faster under 6 threads, right? That's just simply 5 gigahertz versus 4.7 or 5 gigahertz versus 4.6, whatever, how these things are performing. And once you get to 8 threads, Core i9, 9900K just opens up. You have to call Child Protective Services because Core i9 just whoops that Core i7 8700K. Yes, we don't think child abuse is fun at all. Not even kidding. But it is just fast. 30%, 8 threads, 32%, 9 threads. And then again, once that 6-core CPU runs out of gas, we're looking at 31%, 37%, all the way up to 44% over the 8700K absolute bone stock performance thanks to the extra cores and the extra clocks. Right.
And real quick, Veruchu's asking, so there's no IPC gain, just more clocks?
Yeah, so remember this. There's nothing, the only generational change was the number. That's actually truly the difference. I mean, you could argue there's 2 cores. Obviously, there's been a lot said about the solder TIM. So there's actually a solder thermal interface now used. Previously, Intel used to just scrape stuff out of a bottle it found down at, I don't know, in the refrigerator in the Intel kitchen to use. I'm kidding. They actually call it some high-tech polymer, whatever. But clearly, the move to this solder TIM is making a big difference in the chips. They can just push these things a lot harder than they could. I don't think they could do a 8-core chip with the previous thermal interface and keep the clocks they're doing. They just sort of had to do this to get that one extra bump. But as far as the actual underneath the hood, as far as the graphics cores, there's no change. 6th to 7th. So I will say there were changes previously. Originally, Intel said the first generation, the second generation, all that stuff. I asked them years ago. They said the reason why is because of the changes in graphics core. We improved the graphics core. We're giving you 50% more performance in games on this part. What about the x86 side? Oh, it's the same damn thing. Don't even ask. So, and then from Skylake to Kaby Lake, the only reason it justified going from 6th gen to 7th gen was they actually changed the video engine. So actual gaming performance was the same, but if you could watch 10-bit and it was real, it really enabled a lot more video processing.
I remember watching that.
That was enough for Intel to say it's a new generation. It's 7th generation Kaby Lake. When they did 8th generation, we just stopped asking. I swear to God, we were in the New York City briefing with Intel. There were 100 journalists. No one asked anyone at all, why is this 8th gen? Why over 7th gen? Because we know it's newer, it's better. Let's just face it, it's just one better, right? That's all it means. And it is truly better because you're getting higher clocks, you're getting a solder thermal interface, and you're getting more cores at the high end. So yeah, that's why it's 9th gen.
Yeah, okay.
But it's all over that 8700K. It's just like, I would definitely say most people, if you have an 8700K, you don't need to buy it if you're playing games. if you are really doing 3D modeling, if you're doing video editing and you just kind of like, you just need a little more, you can write it off as tax, maybe you can, then yeah, it's actually kind of worth it. You're getting 44% more performance on an all-core load.
Whew.
Right?
Yeah.
So I got to say, and the thing is, if you are running a Z370 board, good Lord, thank you did that, Intel. You can put a Z390 into that board, it'll work.
Nice.
So you're getting legitimately more performance. It's very much like going from a Ryzen 5 6-core to a Ryzen 7 8-core. That's a very good upgrade. This is a very good upgrade if you can make it pay for itself in your work. If you play games, come on. Put your money toward a better GPU. But let's face it, it's a decent upgrade. Of course, you want to know how it does against Ryzen.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So the this time the blue is the 2700X and the green is the 9900K.
Yeah. I kept the colors the same because I was lazy. But here's the issue for Ryzen. These are bone stock parts. Down at the low end, you can see it's just the problem with 8700K and Ryzen 7 2700X. Down at those low thread counts, 8700K had a little bit of a messaging by saying, hey, I can run at higher clocks. You don't kick my ass till we get up to high thread counts. That's not the same with Core i9 9900K, which has got all kinds of clock speeds down at a single thread. You're looking at 5 gigahertz down here versus pretty much 4.1, right? XFR probably takes it up to 4.1. 180 versus 220, and there's just nowhere at all that Ryzen 7 ever gets a clock speed advantage. And let's look at it in.
Oh man.
Now this is the killer. Now this is, of course, MCE off on the 9900K, but you can see where the Ryzen 2700X really gets beat up by that 9900K. It's all down to that low end. It gets better. The message gets a little better up at 16 threads, 16 cores.
But it's still lower double digits.
You're still looking at a loss of 12% versus that 8 core on 8 core action, 16 thread on 16 thread action. It gets closer, but really where Ryzen 7 gets beat up a lot by 9900K is at that mid and low end where it's got all that clock speed, right? This thing it's just got all kinds of clock speed, and Ryzen 7 2700X, it's not built to handle it. We'll see. We'll talk about other things. Again, let's look at this. So this is 2700X. Let me see if I can flip back to 8700K, right? So you can see 8700K has a decent message on those low thread counts. For a lot, that's why I can say for a lot of gamers, you don't really need to upgrade. It's not that right end of the scale up on the right side where you need it. Up on this right hand side, up over here, it's worth going to that 900K on the left side. Nah, it's a wobbler, right? Unless you can make your boss pay for it. 2700X, that left side is just ugly. 22%, 20%, 24% at 8 threads. It's just all that clock speed. It just can't overcome the clock speed.
Wow.
A little better once at stock speed, once you're putting heavier load on that Core i9 9900K and you're down at 4.3 versus like a 4.1, you're getting a lot closer. It's decent there. So if you and I could argue, 2700X for the money, on that right side of the scale, hell yeah, right? You're doing 3D rendering on the cheap. You're not going to pay for the $500 CPU. This is a damn good deal. But this, I'm going to point out, is again with MCE off. Multi-core enhancement.
Oh.
And I got one more. This is with MCE on, right? Against 2700X.
Percentage.
Let's just do the percentage. It's just ugly, right? You're looking at 30% more, 8 threads, 23% at 1 thread, up at 16 threads.
Oh, man.
Because now 9900K is running at 5 gigahertz for a lot of loads. You keep it to about 20 minutes, it'll sit at 5 gigahertz. 20%, 19%. It's just hard to do 5 gigahertz, 8 cores versus 4.1, 4.2 if you're lucky.
Yeah, so
it's just not. 800 megahertz is a huge advantage for that Core i9.
So from 20% to 30% faster, or better.
Yeah, and that's just. That's a tough one. Look again. This is with MCE off. This is MCE on, and that is free overclocking. Ooh. And as much as I know, again, in fact, all of our benchmarks were done MCE off. We want to show you what the bone stock, or some might argue less than bone stock, you're going to get out of a Core i9. But I think it's like, realistically, if you go out and you buy a 200, I look, there's a $130, $129 gigabyte board. It has MCE. You could argue, though, with that $129 board, what are you really going to get? Are the VRMs up to pushing 8 cores at 5 gigahertz all day? Maybe not. So maybe Gigabyte says, you know, you cheaped out, we'll give you an MCE on, you're only going to get 4.7, 4.6. Who knows what you're going to get? That's sort of the unpredictable nature of MCE. But I think it's also very fair to argue, since everybody ships motherboards with MCE enabled, you're always going to get more than what you're seeing here. The MCE off is the minimum that you're going to get. You're going to get somewhere between this over a 2700X and this, right? This is MCE off. So,
well, and Vignesh is wondering if you can redo this test with it on and the Ryzen part with the MBO.
oh, I should.
PBO. I'm sorry.
PBO. In fact, I don't.
Because that'd be interesting. I'd like.
It'd be interesting to see.
And
I'll do it.
But maybe it comes back down to here. You know.
Yeah, maybe this is your base. This is your base performance, right? It's sort of like it is that.
Yeah.
But again, now let's get into the money thing. I wish I could do that money chart right now. I'm in real time if I could.
Real time money.
But yeah, so you're looking at $529 for the bare part, the bare chip. No cooler. You get the fancy box though, which is nice.
Well, we didn't even get a fancy box.
We didn't get the fancy box. That's how bad it is. We got the paper box because Adam broke the plastic box.
It's because I broke it. We already broke one. So
you're looking at $529 street today, Amazon, Newegg, wherever you want to go and buy it. U.S. prices. We're only going to talk U.S. because we're in U.S., America. And versus street price, Ryzen 7 2700X, $300 with a hell of a decent cooler. One, it's got RGB, that makes it better. Two, it's actually a decent cooler. It runs really nicely on that stock Wraith Prism RGB cooler.
It's pretty too, yeah.
So I got to say, I really think there's room for both. You know, and I think a lot of people were very upset at Intel for, man, why didn't you make this $360? You know what?
They like money.
They like money. Everybody likes money. I like money. Believe me, I wish I had more money today. But I got to tell you, if you're an AMD fan, I'd be thankful Intel did not price Core i9 9900K at $350.
Well, because then then it'd be harder to justify, right?
Could you imagine Core i9 9900K 5 gigahertz turbo MCE Auto 4.7 all-core turbo for $350 up against a 2700X? I mean, that is just a beatdown. I got to say, 2700X really has a great place. You're getting 8 cores, you're getting 8 threads, $300 with the cooler. I can still recommend that CPU all day for like you could almost say it's the world's best gaming CPU because it's cheaper. But the world's fastest gaming CPU, world's fastest mainstream consumer CPU, without a doubt, Core i9 9900K, right? In fact, you could say that's the world's best gaming CPU because it's faster. Because clearly, best doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is cost per thread, not great, but the performance you are getting is really you can't. I wanted to go into this testing. I wanted to go in this and say, I'm really doubtful that this chip is going to be fast enough to make me convinced to say it makes sense. $500 for this CPU. Let's say $530 at launch, 1 quarter in, could be $500, could even be $490, right?
Yeah.
To me, it really felt like I can't really justify that because Ryzen is such a great price. But if you really want those high clock speeds, you want a bragging system. Intel's really done it with this part to very much justify the price increase. I gotta say, which even though I really went into, it's like, oh god, really? You can't beat 300 with cooler versus 530 without cooler. But the performance, this thing is just a monster, right? It's faster than a $1,723 CPU.
It's very fast. But we got some questions.
Oh, right. Get the questions.
Before we wrap up. Thermals. A lot of people want to know thermals. And also, part B of that, why didn't you use the Intel stock cooler? if you can reiterate again why you switched to.
Well, so I originally said, you know what? I decided originally I'm going to try to make this fair. If you are buying a 2700X, you're getting that great cooler out of the box. Let's try to put the best Intel cooler up against this, just to make it even. Well, the problem is, so I bought a $29. It's this really tall Intel cooler. It's got a copper heat slug. I think it's the BX215A. I started my testing with both of those on the 6700K and the 8700K and the Wraith Prism. Everything was going great. It's doing all these tests. I said, you know what? I'm going to go in and turn on some, and do the multi-core turn because these things can be right. And I started to go like, the thermals were perfectly fine stock. Mm-hmm. You could see them climb up, but never turn into a thermal throttling, a power issue. I use XTU to monitor it. I was just keeping an eye on it. But once you turn on MCE on, once you actually enabled it or set it on auto, that stock cooler it was thermally throttling both the 8700K and the 9900K.
Huh.
And I realized it's just not enough. If you're looking at it stock, then it just felt like I wasn't giving people the full story of this, because most people are not buying this, Intel $29 cooler. They're buying a higher end liquid cooler, or they're buying,
Okay.
I got to admit, who's going to buy a $529 Core i9-9900K and then put a $29 air cooler on it? You're going to put one of those high-end Noctua coolers. And then once I did that, I realized I got to make it even. So H80Is on all of them. I'm not going to do that. We already saw how that turned out. So basically, in running on max fans. So as far as the thermals go, there was no thermal limiting in any of them. Generally, on a heavy load, 9900K, 60, 70K, 70C, not bad, right?
Okay.
So with the H80i, it's not a huge CLC, but very decent. The temperatures were fine. I didn't do actually any overclocking because I just ran out of time. I had to move my desk this week, so I lost a couple days.
Yeah.
But I did talk to a couple people who did some tests. Jeff over at overclocking.net did some overclocking. He's an overclocking expert. He got, I think he did a 5 gigahertz overclock, and his temperatures were pretty good. And actually, I'm also going to point out overclocking, who I always love to talk to, because hopefully nobody's watching this. I bummed cigarettes from him when I trade events. I don't smoke, but when I'm with Steve, I always smoke. Stephen Basseri at Tweaktown did some nice overclocking out of the 9900K, and he was hitting basically 5.5 with 1.33 volts.
Okay.
So, and also I got to say, talking to Jeff at overclocking.net, overclock.net, he was saying he sort of feels that this is the last stop. This is the absolute last stop for 14 nanometer, because this is 14 nanometer plus. Who knows what it is? With the solder TIM, with 8 cores, he thinks, because he did some overclocking, and getting up above 5 wasn't the easiest thing. And Steve over at Tweaktown, and he is like one of the overclocking experts on the internet who writes for media outlets. He does a lot of, go look up Steve's at tweaktown.net. He does all the Coffee Lake Ryzen overclocking guides. He's got these wonderful flow charts. But Jeff at overclock.net was saying this is it. He's like, there's nothing left. You're not going to we're going to see first quarter because 10 nanometer doesn't show up. He doesn't think we're going to see, new 10,999K, wherever it is, at 5.3 gigahertz turbo. He doesn't think that's going to happen. And I gotta agree, it's probably it. But it's very aggressive. They're being also super aggressive with their MCE and their turbos.
Well, we got some people saying that other people are reporting higher temperatures. Have you been seeing in?
I didn't monitor the very end of say an hour-long blender run, but everything I had was within control. But also remember, I ran with MCE off most of the time. So you're looking at 8 cores.
Oh, okay.
4.3, very much as a person, and I know people say, oh my God, nobody buys 8700, nobody buys K parts and doesn't overclock. Mm-hmm. You would be surprised, internet, at how many people buy K parts because they're better and they don't overclock. I would say actually the vast majority of people who buy K parts don't overclock.
I bought a K part back in the day, and I was scared to overclock it, so I didn't do it. Another question that people are wondering. Are you going to test the 8700K, and do you think that's actually going to end up better in games than the 9900K?
You know, so we made this prediction before that I thought the 9700K with 8 core, 8 threads could lose some workbench, Cinebench multi-threaded bench. It would lose to the 8700K because it has 6 core, 12 threads. Unfortunately, Intel only seeded us, mere mortals, the 9900K. But if you're Ian Cuttress over at AnandTech, you can call somebody up and they send the parts over. I recommend, if you want to know today how the Core i7 9700K and the Core i5 9600K did, go over to AnandTech.com. Ian, of course, is usually the biggest brain in the room anytime you get the media in there. And actually, I haven't had a chance to read everybody's tests, reviews, benchmarks, but I glanced at a couple of his performance tests, and we saw exactly that. If you were looking at Cinebench, 97 Core i7 9700K would actually lose to that 8700K in definitely some work benchmarks, Blender, 3D rendering. But let's look at some gaming tests to see what he got. And I think actually, again, Intel's going all in on gaming. 8 cores, that's going to run at a pretty high clock most of the time, is probably going to be faster than the 8700K in some games. I think in a lot of games that we're seeing, like the games, even though they say DirectX 12, they're really only pushing 1 or 2 threads. I bet you that 9700K is going to go pretty fast because decently high clocks. If it's going to parallel what we're seeing with the 9900K, and which is like we're going to run these clocks all the way at the top as much as we can because we have that new thermal interface material, it's probably going to be faster than an 8700K, but it's really going to be a back and forth. I bet you in Rise of the Tomb Raider, it'd be interesting. So we sort of have that 12 threads versus 8 threads. Shadows of the Tomb Raider.
The new one.
It might be interesting because some of it's clock speed battle, some of it's real cores versus physical cores. I don't know. It'll depend. I would definitely say if I had an 8700K, I would not upgrade to a Core i7 9700K. That clearly doesn't make much sense. You can argue 9900K makes a lot of sense. If I were doing a new build, I would go out and I would read Ian's review today. Hopefully we get a part soon. Read our review later. Read Gamers Nexus. Read Overclock. Read Anon. Read Tom's. Read everybody's. Go to Reddit. Talk to your friend down at the electronics store. See what they have to say, and then decide what's right for you for your loads.
Okay.
Right? Don't ever believe anybody who says this is right because then they're wrong. Anybody who doesn't tell you to also look at everything is not really being very honest.
Yeah, and I'll say, as of right now, both myself and Dan, who's on the 2500K, we're both looking to upgrade our systems at home. And
4790K, right? Devil's Canyon part.
Devil's Canyon is what I have at home. He has a 2500K. We both have nicer video cards, so really it's more just the CPU and motherboard. And I'm going to upgrade the case. He's not going to upgrade his case. So yeah, we're both looking, and man, it's still hard to beat that Ryzen.
For the value, that's why I gotta say, AMD fans, you may want to be, you shouldn't even compare the two. Well, you have to because it's the best chip, but you better thank your lucky stars. Intel didn't say, we're gonna go cheap or we're gonna go to war. We're gonna go to mattresses, Core i9 9900K, 329, and be like, oh my God, that's just, that'd be crazy, right? That'd be crazy. It'd be awesome for everybody, but be thankful they didn't do that if you want AMD to make money too, because AMD likes money too. Everybody likes money, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So at this point, especially now that we've seen this stuff, and we'll look more into the 9700K, especially if we get the parts in. But yeah, we're both kind of looking Ryzen.
Yeah.
So
no,
we'll see.
I can wholesale recommend Ryzen 7 2700X. I'm looking at Ryzen. I've got this ancient 8-core Sandy Bridge box
Xeon,
I'm running,
right?
Xeon, an older. I was like, what am I going to do, right? Threadripper is sort of like, because I love cores, I don't need them. I just like the idea. But
All right.
Honestly, for me, 9900K would be the better part for what I do. I got to say for you too, but it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
extra
like
money, man.
it comes down to money. It comes down to
I
everybody's
do have
budgets.
a cooler. I do already have CLC, so you know.
Right. There's
Yeah.
two people I've been talking to, two viewers / readers I've been talking to. You know, what do they want to build? And I was talking to one today. He's like, "Oh my God, this is going to be awesome, right?" Because he wants, for him, the price of the hardware is not all. It's not all about saving pennies. It's really about getting sort of like best performance. He's a professional photographer. He uses Lightroom. Core i9 9900K, I gotta say, for the most part, it's gonna rock Lightroom, I think, because all those cores, 16 threads, 5 gigahertz, 4.7, whatever you're gonna get,
right.
That's gonna be great for Lightroom. It's worth it for him. It's like making money.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah. Definitely.
For him, Skylake X, he was looking at Skylake X, but couldn't really, justify it. But
All right, well, let's finish this up.
any more questions?
Yeah, with one more question, and then we're going to go to lunch because I am hungry.
Oh, I'm going to go to sleep.
And you need some sleep. People are wanting to know, how is this compared to the Xbox One X?
wow. Yeah, well, we were gonna have a problem with the Xbox One X because it's got 8 cores.
Yeah.
You heard about that?
Yeah,
Xbox One X.
And 4K at
8
$500.
cores, yeah.
A whole system, man. Or actually, I don't even know. Maybe it's $450 now. For you 4K compatible system, 8 cores,
I think the
under $500.
Yeah, that's just not even. I mean, I hope
you
you're
could
joking.
get an Xbox One X or this chip alone,
right.
right?
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, what I think they like to say in Washington D.C. is, I don't want to dignify that question. That question is below my status, Senator. Frankly, I am embarrassed, sir, that you would even bring that up in the hollow chambers of this room, Senator. Do not even mention the lower house and talk of an Xbox competing with 8-core gaming CPUs. I'm going to tell you, it does not even compete. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Actually, let me do my Bill voice.
Please.
I do not know. It depends on what the meaning of good gaming is. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you, Gordon, for putting in the hard work.
Yeah.
And the rest of PC World for helping out too.
And thanks for joining. Again,
yeah.
Read all the numbers, digest it, go find the right part for yourself.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about this on the Full Nerd next week. For sure, tune in for that. But as of right now, we just wanted to do something so that it was ready right at launch. And once again, thank you for tuning in, and we will see everyone next week. Have a good weekend.